Here are two of the world's master golf teachers. On your right, Jack Grout, who's been teacher and coach to Jack Nicklaus for many years. On your left is Australian pro Norman von Nida, who has taught golfing greats Gary Player and Bruce Crampton. They're talking about players who've mastered the short game, the last 100 yards.
Who are the 5 greatest short game players you've ever seen play?
Well, easily the best, Jack, would be Jim Ferry, the late Jim Ferry, who died just recently, about 3 weeks ago. From tee to green, he was just an ordinary player, but from 100 yards in, I'd say that there was nobody could compare with him. He could sort of put the ball anywhere on the green and he'd hold the putt. Next to him would be Bobby Locke, the great South African player that came across here and was so successful. I think Bobby won 7 out of 11 tournaments, and when all of the really great players over here saw him play, they sort of thought he had no possible chance of winning, but he kept on winning, mainly because of his game from 100 yards in. He was really a great player. Paul Runyon, I think, was the best of the American players that I've seen. Paul was physically about my size, but round about from 110 yards in, he was really marvellous. He was great and a marvellous competitor too. The late Horton Smith, that was a marvellous player, I believe, from 100 yards in. I played with him in 1939, and I saw him again later on after I came across here, and he was always a marvellous short game player. And possibly Jules Boris. Jules Boris was a marvellous player from 100 yards in. He was a good all-round player, Jules, too, but he was a marvellous player from 100 yards in.
A solid drive down the fairway is very satisfying, but it is the short game, pitching, chipping, and putting, that comprises more than 60% of the game of golf. In the last 100 yards, Jack Grout will share with you the techniques he's taught Jack Nicklaus and hundreds of other players to help them develop good short game skills and measurably improve their scores. The short game involves a number of elements: hand-eye coordination, the degree of touch or feel a player is able to develop, the ability to visualize the shot before hitting the ball, correct clubbing, and a willingness to work at mastering this aspect of the game.
Pitching, chipping, or putting is all touch. Proper procedure of the backswing. When you're going to pitch, you must pick the club more abrupt. If you're going to chip, you take it back like a putter. Yeah, there's where practice comes in again. Must practice.
Here are the tools you'll be using: middle to short irons, the pitching wedge, the sand wedge, and the putter. First, let's address a full wedge shot. You'll be using the pitching wedge later with a part shot, but the full wedge is a good place to begin our approach to the green. An average player will hit a full wedge about 100 yards, and a full 9-iron will travel 10 to 14 yards more. The setup is similar, with the feet fairly close together, the stance open, and the toe-to-ball distance is not as far as with a long iron shot. One of Jack Grout's T-squares will help you learn the correct foot-to-ball relationships for both a full wedge and for your short iron shots. If you don't have one, just remember, the feet are closer together than for a long iron shot and closer to the ball. But a full wedge shot requires a full swing, and the thrust of this tape is primarily pitching and chipping. And pitching and chipping require part shots. For the most part, pitching and chipping are exercises in visualizing the shot clearly, then selecting the club which gives you the most confidence in making the shot exactly as you planned it, and executing the shot correctly.
Pitching the ball naturally is in the air. The thing that I would recommend to a person that is learning how to pitch the ball is their depth perception. By that I mean this. A lot of people keep their eye on the top of the ball when they look at it. Don't make a difference if it's a driver or a pitch shot. You never keep your eye on top of the ball. The diameter of the ball is 1.68. Now, if your depth perception is on top of that ball, 0.68 too high, the chances are you will blade the ball. Now, I recommend 100%, when they look down where the ball is, My depth perception is on the bottom of the ball, because when I make contact, I want the bottom of my club or the base of my club to be at the base of the ball.
A pitch shot makes a high arc and stops softly. Most of its travel is in the air. For a pitch shot, the grip is positioned further down the club shaft, almost on the metal. This gives you better control of the club. Your setup will have the feet closer together and closer to the ball since the hands are lower on the club shaft. The stance should be open slightly to make it easier to keep the swing path on target and to feel the shot. Now be sure that the club face and the ball are aligned along the target line, not along the toe line with its open stance. Keep a lively feeling in the legs and knees. Don't set up tight. Your arms and shoulders must also feel alive, relaxed, and free to swing through the ball. It will also help keep your body steady through the swing. The hands should be slightly ahead of the ball. This helps the hands and forearms lead the club head through the ball. Only if the hands lead the club head through the ball will the loft of the club work the ball as it's designed to do. Beware of scooping the ball. Whether pitching or chipping, scooping the ball is a deadly sin. A steeper swing arc using the wrists makes the ball fly high and stop quickly.
You have to keep your head steady throughout the shot. You're not looking for power, you're looking for finesse. By steady head, I mean keeping your head centered between your feet at all times. The better you get at this, the better you play the game.
Let's review the pitch shot. A pitch shot is an arc that flies high and settles quickly. Your hands are positioned well down the shaft, almost to the metal portion of the shaft. The stance is open slightly, and be sure that the club head and the ball are aimed along the target line and not along the toe line formed by that open stance. Remember that the hands and forearms must lead the club head through the ball so that the loft of the club works the ball properly. A pitch requires a steep swing arc and the use of the wrists to make the ball fly high and settle quickly.
Some men can chip the ball better than they can pitch it. Some can pitch it better than they can chip it. But to be versatile, you should practice on both.
When you need to get up and down quickly to clear a bunker or an obstruction, try a lob shot. When lobbing, the hands don't lead the club head. They are even with the ball through the swing, and the backswing only comes back to 7 or 8 o'clock. Remember, in a lob shot, the hands don't lead like they do in a pitch shot. They are even with the ball. Now let's examine chipping. A chip shot is a low-flying running shot. It's played with a less lofted club and a shallow swing. You'll use a chip from just off the green to roughly 35 feet from the green. Beyond about 35 feet, a chip shot may roll and over-carry the green since there's no backspin to help stop the ball.
Well, chipping to me is using the proper club, which is a non-lofted club. I would say a 5-iron is a good club to chip with. It has a little loft in it, in the head, but there again, you have to practice. No one can tell me how hard to hit a ball to chip a ball 30 feet. I have to learn that.
Let's look at the setup for a chip shot. Like the pitch shot, a chip requires a good grip, positioned well down the shaft of the club, almost on the metal. The feet will be closer together and closer to the ball than for your long iron shots, and the stance will be slightly open, so be sure your swing is aimed along the target line, not the toe line. You'll have a lot of roll after the ball lands, but you should aim at the spot you want the ball to land.
In chipping and putting, you stand flat-footed with 60% of your weight on the left foot throughout the shot. Your hands and arms do all the work.
Keeping a little more weight on the target side foot makes it easier to swing through the ball, contacting it just before the bottom of the swing arc, just as you do in a full iron shot. But keep a lively feeling in the legs and knees. Don't set up tight. The shoulders and arms must also feel alive, free to make a relaxed swing. This will also help keep your body steady through the swing. As in a pitch shot, The hands should be just ahead of the ball. This slight forward press will help keep the flight of the ball low. The swing arc will be fairly shallow, and you must try to keep the wrists quiet during a short chip shot. For a longer chip, the wrists will cock as the right elbow hinges, but for a short chip, the hands and wrists are firm.
Everybody has a favorite club to chip with. I say to them, what club do you like to chip with? Oh, I like to chip with my 7-iron. Some fellows might say I like to chip with a 5-iron. Would you believe Bobby Jones in his day, you know what he chipped with was a 3-iron, a non-lofted club. He held the club kind of short, but he got the same reaction as a putter.
Let's review the chip shot. Remember that a chip shot is a low trajectory shot played with a less lofted club. The ball will travel about 1/3 its distance in the air and roll the rest of the way. The grip is low on the club shaft, and for short chips, you'll want to keep the wrists firm. Aim at the spot you want the ball to land, along the target line, not the toe line, because your stance will be slightly open. You'll be standing flat-footed and closer to the ball, and a little more than half your weight will be on the target side foot. Now don't set up tight. Keep a lively feeling in the legs and knees, and keep the arms and shoulders free to swing through the ball in a fairly shallow arc. And remember that your hands must lead the ball in order to keep the flight of the ball low.
It's important to choose the right club. Choosing the wrong club is what gets a person in trouble to start with.
Since every club is designed to hit the ball a different distance, you must learn how far you normally hit the ball with any given club. To illustrate, the average man hits a full wedge shot just about 100 yards. With a sand iron, the average male golfer will get about 50 yards out of a full swing. But no one can tell you exactly how far you will get with a club. That's something you will have to determine for yourself. And you can do that by pacing off your shots during practice. Take two side-by-side clubs, a 6 and 7 iron, for example, and hit a group of colored balls with the 6 iron. Then hit a group of different colored balls with the 7 iron. You should be able to decide about how far you hit, on average, with each club by pacing off the average distance for each group of balls. Do this for every club in your bag. You'll find it far easier to choose the correct club for any given shot if you know in advance what your normal yardage is with each club. Next, you'll need to estimate how far it is to the pin from where you're lying. Familiarity with your home course will soon make you a fair judge. Use your surroundings, a tree, an odd-shaped shrub, or a bunker, as references to get a feel for the remaining distance from the pin. If you're playing on an unfamiliar course, naturally, you'll have to rely on your depth perception and the approach shots of other players.
Visualization, that is, seeing the shot in your mind's eye before you hit it, is one of the best things you can do to improve your game.
Visualizing your shot, giving yourself a moment to imagine the flight of the ball and where it will roll, does two important things. First, it creates a clear objective in your mind. And second, it establishes a positive attitude toward the shot you're about to make. So before you set up for the shot, give yourself just a moment. Imagine the ball in flight. See it hitting the green. Imagine how far it will roll. Let your mind's eye visualize what you want the ball to do. Here are some keys to making you a better pitcher and chipper. First, choose a chip shot over a pitch shot when conditions permit. Try to make your chip shot land on a smooth, level part of the green and run toward the hole. But if a chip shot would land the ball on a downslope or cause it to run well past the hole, elect to make a pitch shot. Always give yourself a moment to visualize the shot. Select the club you feel will give you the best chance of making the shot you've decided on. Then take a couple of practice swings to find the stroke you need to deliver the shot. Remember that pitch shots require a steeper swing arc, more down than forward, with more wrist action to make the ball fly high and settle quickly. A chip shot has a shallower swing arc, more forward than down, with the wrists firm to make the ball run. And remember that you have to keep your head steady through both a pitch and a chip shot. And be sure that the hands lead the ball through the shot to avoid scooping the ball. As you make your shot, try to duplicate those practice strokes. No one makes every shot just right, of course, so you'll need to know what to do when you're faced with an awkward lie. Hillside shots can be especially tricky. The main thing to remember about hilly lies is to keep the shoulders as parallel to the slope as possible. This allows the club face to contact the ball correctly instead of undercutting or topping it. Anytime the ball is lying on the side of a hill, you can expect the ball to fly away from the slope of the hill. If you're standing above the ball, you can expect it to push right. So grip the club a little higher on the shaft to avoid topping it, and aim a little left to compensate. If you're below the ball, it will tend to pull to the left of the target. So choke down on the club shaft to avoid undercutting the ball and aim a little bit right of the target to compensate. If you have a shot that's directly uphill, play the ball slightly forward off the front foot. Downhill shots call for just the reverse. Plant yourself firmly and play the ball slightly off the back foot. And remember, on hilly lies, shoulders parallel to the slope. Remember that when you have very little green to work with, when the pin is placed well forward, for example, or tucked into a corner of the green, you can use a lob shot, a part pitch that gets up high and stops softly. Now let's talk about bunker play. There's no greater psychological hazard for most golfers than a sand trap. And because players fear the sand, they tend to neglect practice on this part of the game.
Bunker play, in my estimation, in my opinion, is the easiest shot in golf. So many people have problems getting out of a bunker. They don't have the least idea what to do. Now to be a great bunker player, you should use a sand wedge, a blaster, whatever. Now you play the ball, if you want to get height out of a bunker, you must play the ball forward, off your left heel. You open the face of the club a little bit and be very abrupt on the backswing. That is, with a putter, and that's you take the putter back low along the ground. That's not abrupt. Abrupt means to pick the club up very quickly. Now, most people keep their eye on the ball when they're playing bunker shots. You don't keep your eye on the ball. You concentrate your attention, your eye, somewhere between 2 and 3 inches back of the ball. You must hit the sand first.
Remember your priorities in the bunker. Your first objective is to get out of the bunker. Your second objective is to get on the green. And your third objective is to get as close to the pin as possible. The sand wedge is designed to take a cushion of sand on which the ball rides out of the bunker. The heavy sole, called the bounce, will keep the club from being too deeply buried or cutting too deeply into the sand. If the ball is sitting up well, a shallow sand cushion is indicated, so the club face should be opened for the shot. The more you open the blade, the shallower the cushion of sand will be. If the ball is partly buried, as it often is, the face of the club should be kept more closed in order to take a deeper bite out of the sand and carry the ball up and out. For the basic sand shot, set up with your feet firmly planted. Your stance will be slightly open. Visualize the shot. And remember that since you want to ride the ball up and out on a cushion of sand, you'll be aiming an inch or so behind the ball. On the backswing, the wrists will cock early to get the club up quickly into a steep swing arc, much like the pitch shot. Don't forget the shoulders. Let the body turn to complete your backswing. On the downswing, pull the club down and forward with the left hand and arm, and keep the swing going until both your hands are above your shoulder. Now, don't let your hurry to get out of the bunker rush you into making a poor shot. The truly great players make their sand shots slowly and deliberately and with great control.
People that don't take their time, they don't know what they're doing. What they're trying to do is get out of there the best way they can, or roll it out, or bump it out, or kick it out one. But that same person, he could take 2 or 3 lessons, that's all. Simple 2 or 3 lessons, that's all a man has to do in order to be a good bunker player. Bunker play is no problem at all to learn how to play bunkers. It's been said that the hardest shot in the game, it's the easiest shot in the game.
If you feel a little tense about making the shot, take just a moment to relax your shoulders and lighten your grip on the club so that you can feel the swing and the shot. Take a practice swing on the grass just to review that smooth tempo you want for the shot. Set up, take a deep breath, then exhale and let the whole program roll off automatically.
Don't rush your shot. Take your time, swing smooth and deliberate so you won't lose your balance.
Since the rules of play prohibit you from grounding the club or feeling the sand with your hands, your feet will have to tell you something about the consistency of the sand and whether it's wet or dry. When you're faced with a buried lie or wet sand, remember that your primary objective remains getting out of the bunker. Keep the face of the club more closed to let the club dig more deeply and carry more sand cushion. You'll need a steeper swing arc, so be sure to use the wrists to get the club up and down abruptly. Make the stroke firm, and don't stop the swing until the hands are above the shoulders. Now, we've been talking about that last 100 yards. But on a well-designed course, you'll run into something about 240 to 260 yards off the tee called a fairway bunker. It deserves mention because a fairway bunker is strategically placed to penalize players for a bad shot. As with any shot, the idea is to advance the ball toward the hole. But of course, you first have to clear the lip of the bunker and get out. Getting out is always your first priority in any bunker shot. 2 things to pay attention to: the lie of your ball and the lip of the bunker. As a rule, fairway bunkers are not as contoured. That is, they are more shallow and have less lip than bunkers around a green. As a rule, you'll find that your ball has rolled into the fairway bunker, so you won't be faced with the buried lie. Since you probably won't be in range to hit the green from a fairway bunker, your objective is to get out and into a good lie on the fairway for your next shot. But a fairway bunker is played differently than a bunker near the green. To begin with, you'll be using one of your middle irons or even a fairway wood. And in a fairway bunker shot, you'll want to hit the ball before you hit the sand so that the club gives you some distance as well as getting you out of the bunker. So play the ball slightly back in the stance, shorten your club length slightly by gripping further down the shaft, and remember that the hands must lead the club through the shot so that the loft of the club can work the ball. But remember, for all sand play, you must use a more controlled swing, shorter, to prevent your being pulled off balance and topping the ball. And because the sand will cheat you of some distance, choose one club longer than you would use for the same distance if you weren't playing out of a bunker. On the rare occasion that you find yourself buried in a fairway bunker, remember, your primary objective with any bunker shot is to get out of the bunker, so choose a club you feel gives you the best chance of getting out. Use a controlled swing to avoid losing your balance. And remember that in a fairway bunker, it is the ball which is struck first, and the swing follows through. Let's review bunker play. Remember to take your time with all sand shots. Control the shot. Don't let it control you. Make a practice shot on the grass. Relax. Keep the hands and shoulders free to feel the shot. The feel of the sand underfoot should tell you something about the consistency of the sand and whether it's wet or dry. Now, firm footing is tricky on sand, so bury and set your feet firmly. And use a shorter swing to avoid having your feet shift during the swing and throw you off balance. To ride the ball up and out, you'll want to take a cushion of sand so your aiming point will be just a little bit behind the ball. Opening or closing the club face helps determine how much sand cushion you'll take. The stance is slightly open, and you'll use the wrists to bring the club up and down abruptly. Make a firm stroke, and don't stop until the hands are above the shoulders. When you have a wet or buried lie, remember that your first objective is still to make a shot that gets you out of the bunker. Fairway bunkers are usually played with one club longer than normal, and the technique is to strike the ball before the sand in order to get some distance as well as getting out of the bunker. Grip a little further down the shaft of the club, play the ball slightly back in the stance, and be sure the hands lead the club head through the stroke. Before we discuss the ultimate saving shot, putting, let's discuss surveying or reading a green.
Well, to read a green is like reading a book. You have to practice where to aim the ball, where the contours of the ground lies. As if you're going uphill or downhill, the ball curves left to right or right to left. You have to be able to recognize that.
Very few players practice putting enough. Still fewer learn to read a green, which is a skill that pays off when your putts start going where you want them to. By far the most influential factor on a putt is the contour of the green, since it most affects the way a ball will break when stroked. A well-designed green takes advantage of the surrounding contours of the landscape, so the area surrounding the green should tell you the general way the green will tend to break. As you reach the green, take note of which is the high side, which is the low side, and take note of subtle changes in the slope. Be sensitive to the feel of the green underfoot as you walk across it. This foot feel and your inner ear can tell you a great deal about the contour of a green. You'll hear a lot of talk about the grain of the grass on a green, and here's how you can determine which way the grain is running. Stand on the green looking toward the sun. If the green has a shiny look to it, the grain is going away from you. If it has a dull, slightly dark appearance, the blades of grass, the grain, are growing toward you. If you're putting against the grain naturally, the ball's path of travel is going to be slowed, since the blades of grass will resist the roll of the ball. Putts made with the grain will be less affected, and cross-grain putts will tend to break more sharply. They will tend to follow the contour of the green. Remember that the contour of the green is far more important than the grain when you're planning your putt. This is Clay Long, Vice President of Design and Development for McGregor Golf Clubs. He's using a device called a stimp meter to determine the speed of this green. The stimp meter has been sanctioned by the United States Golf Association for use by greens committees to determine the playability, that is, the speed of greens for tournament play. The stimp meter is used in all four directions from a relatively level portion of a green. The average distance the ball rolls determines the speed, and it's expressed in numeric form. A fast green might be said to play like an 8, while you might hear that another green is playing like a 4. The lower the stimp meter number, the slower rolling the green is. The green speed can be adjusted, of course, by permitting it to grow a little more or by cutting it closer. Most greens today have bent grasses which are fine-grained and offer less resistance to the roll of the ball, which means that contour is going to be the most influential factor in how a ball breaks. If a green is recently cut, it stands to reason that it will play a little faster, since the blades of grass are shorter and offer less resistance to the roll of the ball. And just as a wet fairway will decrease the distance a ball will roll, a wet green will play slower than a dry one. So if there's been a recent shower, or if the green has just been watered, you can expect a slower rolling putt than usual. Fast-growing grasses, particularly in the south, will play slowly in the early morning while the dew is still on them. As the day progresses, the green will play faster as it dries out. And the sun growth, that small but noticeable daily growth between cuttings, may slow the green down again by the day's end. And the condition of the grass within about 3 feet of the cup is worth noting, since as the ball slows down when it approaches the cup, the grain of the grass will tend to have more effect on the ball. Even if you've mastered the art of reading greens, it will be worthless unless you can depend on the consistency of your putting skills, and that comes with practice.
What would you recommend if you had, say, you had a young fella at your convenience where you wanted to learn to play the game? Would you recommend learning to play the short game before the long game? If it's a short game, how would you teach him how to putt?
Well, I'd teach him two methods. I'd use the method that Bobby Locke and Jim Ferry used, and I used when I was considered a tournament player, and that is the wristy field putt. And for the shorter putts, I'd teach him the American method. That is the stiffer arm, straight arm back, and your shoulders like that way, see? Whereas with the other one, you're using your hands more like that, see? Just letting your hands move there. The feel is the most important facet of the thing, and if you teach them young, well, they retain that method of putting the ball, and they've got the confidence to use it. And, well, Bernard Langer, he uses two different types of putting now. He uses the wristy hand action on these long putts, and he uses the reverse grip on his shorter putts, and it works very well for him.
No matter what your age, strength, coordination, or whatever else may cause you problems with the rest of the game, you can shine on the green. And knowing that you can two-putt from anywhere on the green certainly takes the pressure off the rest of your game. Putting is also the most individualistic part of the game. You'll see many variations in grip and foot position. Some arm swings, some wrist swings, some that use a little of each, such as Mr. Long is demonstrating. Some styles may appear bizarre. But what is important for you to keep in mind is that most good putters today use an arm swing method that has little or no wrist movement. And all putting styles have this in common: a balanced stance, eyes over or just behind the ball, putter face square to the target line, a rhythmic swing, and no body movement until well after the ball is struck. The first factor in controlling your putts is a balanced, comfortable stance and setup. Body weight should be over the ball position, with the waist bent enough to have your eyes over the ball or on the target line and slightly behind the ball. Hold the club in a light, comfortable grip of your preference, with the elbows close to the body and slightly bent. Since most successful putters today use an arm swing putt with little or no wrist, that's the style Mr. Long will use in our demonstrations. The back of the left hand is kept toward the target at all times. This keeps the arms and shoulders moving the club face squarely along the target line. In fact, it's more important that the face of the putter be square to the target line than it is to swing in a straight line, so try this exercise. Place two balls side by side and strike them at the same time. If the ball away from you goes further, you'll know that the toe of the club got to the balls first. If the ball closest to you goes further, then the heel of the club struck first. You should practice until you can get the balls to leave the club face together and roll just about the same distance. Like every other stroke in golf, putting is an accelerating swing, a small rhythmic swinging of the club back and through, just like a drive, but in a smaller space. And to avoid second putts that are longer than your first, you'll want to learn to control the tempo of your swing.
Tempo is a form of touch, of course. You don't want to take it too quickly. You want to have a stroke. A stroke is a stroke where you move your hands back and forth, the arms back and forth in a smooth movement. It doesn't take you long to learn to do that.
A good tempo cue may have you thinking 1, 2, or back, through as you putt. It'll help you maintain that rhythm. And don't destroy your tempo with too long a backswing. Keep it smooth and compact. This exercise may help. Stick a tee into the green behind your club, and as you putt, don't let the putter touch it. Think 1, 2, and try to keep your stroke smooth and contained. Remember this too, the body weight must remain absolutely still, no shift and no movement of the head until well after the ball is struck. Develop the habit of waiting to hear the putt drop, or swivel the head without raising up to see the putt on its way.
One factor that controls the contour or break in a green is the speed of the putt. First, the putt is hit with a soft stroke to let it die at the hole. Now the same putt with more speed. The putt takes less break but rolls well past the hole. On short putts, this speed approach will take some of the break out of the shot, but it does take courage to hit a short putt firmly enough to reach the back of the cup.
Long putts, that is, anything over 8 or 10 feet from the cup, are like your approach shots in that they require both visualization and a practice swing. First, aim the ball from behind as with any shot. Visualize the roll of the ball. See the line it will follow. Look at the hole as you make your practice stroke. Try to make your actual stroke feel like the practice swing. Don't analyze it while you're putting. Instead, think tempo. 1, 2. Unless something unusual catches your eye just before you set up to make the putt, trust your gut response to the way the putt should be played. Most players slow the game down and confuse themselves by overanalyzing their putts. As a rule, your first look is your best look. Remember that in putting, you're trying to develop a consistent stroke that produces the right distance for any given putt. And remember that a little courage can help improve your score. A ball hit firmly enough to go slightly past the hole has a better chance of holding the line and being affected less by irregularities in the green. If it does miss, pay attention to how it breaks and use that information to plan your putt coming back.
I would say this: if you practice an hour a day putting, you have to improve your putting. All distances. First, I would start with a short putt, 2 and 3 feet. Learn to make those little Dickenses, because they're the ones that you miss. It costs you a lot of money sometimes and costs you great championships to miss a short putt.
To review, the things that give you confidence in your putting are absolutely steady body and head position, a smooth and compact stroke with good tempo, and practicing both direction and distance putts. Learn to read a green by noting the surrounding terrain. Notice whether the green has been recently cut and whether it's wet or dry. Stand facing the sun and look at the grass. Bright and shiny means the grain is away from you. A dull appearance means the grain is toward you. Pay attention to what your feet tell you when you walk across the green, and remember that contour is the single most important factor controlling the way a ball will break when stroked. Keep a consistent routine, including a practice stroke with your eyes on the hole. Visualize the roll of the ball. Commit yourself to an action, think 1, 2, and make your stroke just like your practice stroke. Remember that most putts are missed through errors in distance judgment. So practice this 3-foot circle exercise to strengthen your distance judgment and build confidence in your ability to two-putt from anywhere on the green.
Now, if you practice and you'll be able to read the green, the speed of the green, or where it's going to curve to, you'll always be a good putter. Now, some of the players that I have seen come from Europe, and possibly Australia, they all learn to play low ball. Why is that, Norman, that they play low instead of high?
Well, the necessity to play that shot that you described over here is paramount because of the shape of the greens and the type of courses that you play on. You don't have the winds that we actually have in Australia and Great Britain and Europe. And because of the fact of the wind, if you hit a high ball over there, you'd never find it because it'd stay in the air so long they'd blow it away. And I don't sort of feel that because of the dominance of the American players over the year that's anything's been any disadvantage, because being as great a players what they are, for instance, Ben Hogan, he only played in Britain once. He played in Scotland at Carnoustie, he won the Open. And the number of times that America has beaten Great Britain in the Walker and the Ryder Cup is just astronomical, so that the fact that they play the type of golf that you suggested over here doesn't mean that they can't play the type of golf that will win in Europe and Australia. The Americans have been the dominant forces in golf for many years, and they've got the ability, through the fact that they are great players, to play any type of course, windy or courses like you have here.
I think the swings are changed. They've gotten much better. I think the players, every 10, 15 years, the players get better technique. In my day, we had about 7 or 8 players that had great golf swings. Geez, and all of them's got great golf swings. All of them can putt. All of them play beautiful iron shots. It's delightful to watch these fellas play. Entice the right hand to add more power to the swing and more whip in there. Boys have it naturally. And the girls, you'd have to give them all the benefit of teaching to make power. Make the club sing when it comes through there. Make it sound like a buzzing bee when you're whipping the club through the ball. Don't sound like a bunch of butterflies going through there, because it won't go anyplace. You got to have speed with the right hand. I call it swinging harder. Make some noise coming through there. Make the club whistle through there. Some of them, their husbands will tell them, now, honey, don't hit it so hard. Just make contact on the ball, all right? So she makes contact on the ball, but it takes her 10 to reach the hole. I want her to reach it in 3 or 4. That's the whole thing. What do you think about that, Silas? Silas over there, give me that.
That's very good.